If you adore Drag Race as much as I do, cheer on the trans competitors as much as I do, then you need to watch Disclosure on Netflix to fully comprehend the price trans trailblazers have paid for the positive trans visibility that we see, enjoy, and critique today. Laverne Cox was the very first trans person I ever met. We met in the late 90s working the late shift at the coffee shop in Union Square in New York City. Laverne has always been a star. The first time I saw her dance at a holiday party, I was floored. I remember her high kicks had everyone gasping for air, and she did so many. She was literally slaying people. We both grew up in the South, both LGBTQ, but Laverne's experience and my experience have been vastly different. Unfortunately, she had a lot to teach me about trans people, but she taught me with patience, kindness, and laughter, and most importantly, in the face of my white, gay, cisgender male privilege, which we definitely need to discuss before disclosure. George M. Johnson wrote an article for NBC News titled, "White, Gay, Cisgender Privilege Exists All Year, but it is particularly hurtful during Pride." I'll quote his suggestion for privileged white gay men like myself. While black queer people are fighting for survival, white queer people fight for marriage equality. This is not to say that marriage equality isn't important, but it is certainly not the only fight. And although we share the same oppressors, white queer folks must come to terms with the fact that they play a role in the harm experienced by black and brown queer folks. A problem they could stop if they acknowledge the privilege they have. Pride Month and every month. Watching Disclosure opened my eyes. Yes, I've been bullied, but I could always hide behind my white, gay, cisgender privilege. As a swimmer, I became the best athlete in my high school for all 4 years. No football player, basketball player, or baseball player could claim they were a better athlete than I. I used my white, gay, cisgender male status as armor. Laverne has always been visible and an advocate from the very first day I met her. She kindly taught me how to be respectful, and my understanding and compassion followed. You can watch Laverne read a very disrespectful Katie Couric in Disclosure. Let's just say Katie opened a door and Laverne was ready to educate. Ultimately, my point is not to disparage Katie Couric, but to prove that it is only natural Laverne would go on to executive produce documentaries educating people about the trans experience and winning awards in the process. She's been doing it all her life from the very first moment I met her. Laverne is willing to be seen on a worldwide stage when being seen is very often what puts trans people and marginalized people in harm's way. Being seen, visible, is what inspired director Sam Feder, producer Amy Scholder, and executive producer Laverne Cox to produce Disclosure. Disclosure is a history lesson, a call to action, and lots of fun for movie lovers. Not until recently, with shows like Orange is the New Black and Pose, has the trans community been portrayed authentically. As Laverne says in the film, it wasn't until she saw Candace Cain in Dirty Sexy Money that she felt seen. Laverne was 35 years old at the time, which is, and I'll quote Laverne, a long time to wait to really fully see yourself. And she says that with laughter. Disclosure was directed by Sam Feder. He worked for several years culling material before executive producer Laverne Cox came on board. Ultimately, Sam Feder, Amy Scholder, and Laverne Cox distilled 100 years of trans representation into a cohesive, entertaining, and ultimately joyful documentary. Without my review becoming a documentary on the documentary, here are just a few of my takeaways. I will never watch Mrs. Doubtfire or Tootsie again, nor Soap Dish. Why did the filmmakers ruin Soap Dish in the last few minutes? Mortifying. I can't justify the silence of the lambs, despite my favorite Jodie Foster performance of all time. Even though Clarice says Buffalo Bill is not a trans person, her reason is that trans people are passive, not that trans people aren't serial killers. As Jen Richards puts it so very, very well, the images of Buffalo Bill, in my opinion, are enough to incite violence against trans people. Most people don't hear the words. For example, when MJ Rodriguez saw Paris is Burning as a kid, she recalls seeing beautiful people on the screen. She did not hear the words. She just saw the happiness and joy. So what do trans people see when they see Buffalo Bill and the Silence of the Lambs? Horror. Every lie that's been told about them. I refused to watch either the Dallas Buyers Club or the Danish Girl when they were released. I did not know enough about trans history to comprehend why I was so disgusted with Jared Leto and Eddie Redmayne playing trans people. Disclosure does a magnificent job of breaking down why we should be disgusted. They both went on to be nominated for Academy Awards where they could project their masculinity to further their careers. Trans people are 4 times more likely to be unemployed than the national average. I do not seek out films with either of these actors, especially Eddie's Fantastic Beast series. I feel bad for all the LGBTQ artists involved in that series after they were betrayed by She Who Shall Not Be Named. Jen Richards does an excellent job breaking down why trans women should play trans women on screen. It's truly a must-see. Jen Richards eloquently equates the violence against trans women with the fact that trans women have been played by cisgender men on screen. She believes part of the reason that men end up killing trans women is out of fear that other men will think that they are gay for having been with trans women. They only know trans women from media. And the people who are playing trans women are the men that they know. This doesn't happen when a trans woman plays a trans woman. Laverne Cox is just as beautiful and glamorous off screen as she is on screen. When you see these women off screen, they are still seen as women. And it completely deflates the idea that they are somehow men in disguise. One of the most disturbing moments for me came when they discuss trans panic, specifically in The Crying Game and Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. The first instance is in the Jim Carrey film Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. Jim Carrey should donate all the proceeds from Ace Ventura to the LGBTQ community, specifically the trans community. The stock trans panic response to discovering that a person is trans is vomiting. Jim Carrey vomits uncontrollably after being with a trans person in Ace Ventura, then outs the trans woman to the police force who all vomit too. The police force, Jim Carrey, has said that he was mocking transphobia, specifically the scene in The Crying Game in which the lead character vomits in the toilet after learning his lover is trans. But I'm not sorry, Jim Carrey. No one in this day and age sees those images in the context of The Crying Game. No one, not even me. And I watch too many movies. I just saw this sequence again in Disclosure. I could not believe the lack of humanity for a joke. In or out of context, the sequence is disgusting. Period. Saying you were mocking homophobia is not enough. Donate those residual checks. This trans panic vomiting that has happened so often to trans people in films matters a whole lot. The gay and trans panic defenses are legal strategies which, according to the American Bar Association, seek to partially or completely excuse crimes such as murder and assault on the grounds that the victim's sexual orientation or gender identity is to blame for the defendant's violent reaction. Trans panic defense has been outlawed in some states. All of these trans trailblazers offer thought-provoking arguments that are impossible to deny or ignore. There is just so much common sense that must be taken into account in future portrayals of trans people in the media. Laverne does an amazing job of giving us a no-nonsense account of her experience. For example, Zeke Smith recalls feeling visible when he saw a clip from Boys Don't Cry, while Michael D. Cohen says he was blown away. Laverne remembers seeing Boys Don't Cry and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. Her pseudo-comic delivery of this truth for me sums up the trans experience ingesting media until now. Oh my God, I'm going to die. The narrative has to change. Everywhere a trans person looked in the media, they were dead. I am so thankful we now have films and series like Orange is the New Black, Pose, RuPaul's Drag Race, Euphoria, The Umbrella Academy, Sense8, and the latest Matrix. Alright, y'all, until next time, acknowledge your white, gay, cisgender privilege if you got it. And always remember, living well is the best revenge.